Our first reader is the former executive director of the Chicago Writers Conference. Her essays have appeared in Story Club and Hypertext magazines. She's a contributor to Pop Mythology, and she tells her stories live at events such as Tuesday Funk and the French Room. She's also been named to New City's Lit 50 list 3 times. By day, she is a public speaking coach and professional speaker. She holds an MFA in creative nonfiction from Goucher College and is one half of the all-female, all-ukulele duo, the Ukuladies, which is such a good name. Please welcome Mare Swallow.
Thank you. Yes, all the way down here. There you go.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Excuse me. That Saturday, like every other Saturday that fall, I made damn sure I was attractive before I headed to work. Hair straight, eyeliner striped to make my eyes alluring. Contacts in, eyeglasses off. Best bra pressing my boobs forward. Narrow skirt, squeezing my waist. Extra deodorant just in case. I would make him notice me. Him being Kyle, a young Brian Ferry lookalike who I had a crush on since I met him. I enjoyed crushes because I loved the feelings they gave me. The cliched spring in your step, the way you'd live life like it was a happy song, and the way your mind raced with nothing but positive, happy, dirty thoughts about you and him. I loved the feeling because it reminded you that you were alive. It made you feel excited about life. It reminded me that you were sexual and you could feel. As if I needed a reminder that I had emotions. But those emotions felt good. I loved the feeling until I hated the feeling. It was 1991. It was Sunday. It was around 5 in the morning, according to the unfamiliar digital clock nearby. It was me waking up in Kyle's bed, the bed I'd longed to be in since I met him a month earlier and asked, "How old are you? And are you married?" He was 28. He wasn't married. I wasn't married. I was a junior in college. He was the assistant manager of the Chi-Chi's Mexican restaurant where I worked double shifts every Saturday. During those Saturdays, I'd steal moments between tables to joke with Kyle. I'd make smart references to things like Monty Python and Milan Kundera. I was certain he would fall for me. He would see that I was worth his time and a 30-mile drive to the cornfields of DeKalb, Illinois. Every Sunday through Friday, I carried an insatiable desire with me. I longed to see Kyle, a torture I willingly indulged in. It was fed constantly by my thoughts of Kyle. During the week, I would stumble through my classes, looking forward to each Saturday, just so I could see him at work and have that aching, intense crush feeling intensified. I loved the almost high feeling the crush gave me. I'd gather bits of information throughout the week to share with Kyle. You know, things like a cool new band or a concert that was coming up that maybe he'd want to go to. I'd listen to Roxy Music throughout the week, his favorite band. And I'd imagine very satisfying fantasies like Kyle visiting me in my studio apartment where he would not be at all put off by the cheap, sparse furniture and my futon on the floor. In my fantasy, I'd make us dinner, macaroni and cheese, and we'd sit across from each other at my cheap dining room table. We'd lean into each other, laughing, then kissing, and then falling into one tumbling bundle of passionate sex on my futon. But that Sunday morning in 1991 was not the scenario I had dreamed of, nor the ending I had wanted. I raised my hand over to the other side of the mattress to see if maybe Kyle was there, to see if maybe he had taken pity on me and slept with me. Nope. The cool mattress under my hand confirmed it. I was alone at 5 a.m. in my boss's bed. I rolled to my left side and faced the open bedroom door. My brain felt like someone had pushed it through a wringer. When did I start puking? 5 a.m.? No, midnight? I winced. I needed to pee really bad, but I was too heavy to move. I stared out the bedroom door, straight into the living room, making out whatever I could in the dim morning light. The sofa I had jumped on the night before was now opened out into a bed. A shapely, naked, blonde woman sat up from the bed. She faced the bedroom where I lay, but she never once looked at me. She must have crashed there too. I watched, stunned, as this gorgeous, naked woman picked up clothes from the floor and easily put them over her body like she had done this 100 times before. Underwear, skimpy dress, sweater. I was dumbstruck, envious of her beauty. She stood up from the sofa bed, revealing another sleeping body next to her. She bent over the sofa, kissed the guy laying there, and left. The guy remained still, and I thought, oh, so 3 of us crashed here last night. It was really nice of Kyle to let them stay. I kept staring at the sleeping guy until it hit me. That is Kyle. I closed my eyes in a spasm of hurt. I wondered, was that his girlfriend? Or just someone he slept with? It wasn't me. The day before was like all my other Saturdays, except Kyle wasn't at work. I was dejected. I wouldn't be getting my weekly hit of Kyle. Wouldn't get to see his piercing blue eyes, wouldn't get to see his cute dimpled smile. I wouldn't get to go over and hint at us maybe going to a show sometime. Disappointed, I slogged through my 2 shifts. And just before I left, one of the busboys stopped me and asked me, was I going to Kyle's party and did I need a ride? I left my car at the restaurant and off we went to Pine Valley Manor, a sprawling suburban apartment complex. Despite skipping dinner and working all day, I felt giddy as I headed into Kyle's apartment. I was going to get my hit of Kyle after all. My disappointing day was turning around. Inside, it was like one of those raging parties you see in those teen movies from the 80s. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch were blasting on the stereo. Young guys yelled nonsense as they slammed cheap beer, and big-haired young women with heavy makeup were yelling nonsense as they guzzled wine coolers. I knew nobody there except a few of the busboys from work, and Kyle. Still in my uniform from work, an approximation of a Spanish blouse with a black skirt, I hung around in the tiny kitchenette sipping beer and attempting party chit-chat with strangers. Kyle suddenly appeared next to me and offered me a body shot. I had no idea what a body shot was, but I said yes. Somehow I conveyed that I needed instruction. Give me your neck, move your hair, Kyle said. I did as I was told, arching my neck toward him, ignorant of what was to come. I shivered twice when he licked my neck. The first time to salt it, the first time to lick the salt off, the second time to lick the salt off. When he indicated I was to reciprocate, I did, licking his neck as slowly and sensually as I could. My head buzzed even harder than it had all week. I was happily dizzy, a sensation that was not coming from the cheap beer. We slammed the 2 tequila shots that were sitting on the counter, and the finish came as a sweet, happy surprise. Kyle passed a lime wedge into my mouth with his, and when it landed there, Kyle's mouth was on mine, kissing me. I kissed back as a throng of strangers went woohoo all around us. A zing of pleasure ran from my head all the way down to my core. I felt a twitching between my legs. Someone yelled for us to repeat the body shots. Me or Kyle or maybe one of the partiers. I felt so dizzy, so happy, so distracted. My body just obediently followed Kyle's. We repeated the licks, the shots, the kissing. My excitement grew with each repetition. How many shots did we do? 4? 5? Definitely not fewer. With plenty of tequila in us, Kyle and I danced ourselves 2 feet away into the tiny living room, singing along to Mariah Carey. You've got me feeling emotion! We stood atop the coffee table. We danced, we locked eyes, and yelled, woo! At the same time. We collapsed from the coffee table onto the sofa together, my hip touching his hip. I took Kyle's behavior as a sign, a big red sign with big letters that screamed, go for it. So I did. I turned to Kyle, placed my hand on his thigh, and looked him in the eyes. I was dazzled. I was keyed up from all the good that was happening and all the good that was about to come. I looked him in the eyes and said, Kyle, I gotta tell you, I really like you, and I am really attracted to you. Kyle placed his hand over mine and said, Mare, I'm flattered, but I don't feel the same way. I felt my face fall, and then I felt something more urgent, something so perfect for that moment. A rush of something forceful leapt up from my stomach. I jumped up and pushed through the wall of people between me and the bathroom. The door was locked. I dropped to my knees, I dropped to my hands, and on all fours, like a sick dog, I heaved the contents of my stomach up onto the bachelor beige carpet. Eventually, somebody pushed me into the bathroom. A stenchy mix of beer, puke, and piss choked the air, but I didn't care. I couldn't. Once I was over the toilet, I puked 3 more times, the acid of my vomit burning my mouth, and the shame of my confession burning my face. When I finally finished, someone put me in Kyle's bed, where I remained alone, in my uniform, all night. Aside from waking up and watching the gorgeous blonde leave, I recall only 2 other things about the next morning. 1, Kyle made me coffee. I sat at his counter, shamefaced, my eyes never once leaving the coffee mug. Standing 2 feet away from me in a tiny kitchen, Kyle, dressed in his velour bathrobe, asked me if I was okay. I muttered a yes. I hope I apologized for being a sloppy drunk. Neither one of us mentioned my confession. He retreated to his bedroom now that it was free to go get dressed. 2, Kyle drove me back to my car. On the 20-minute ride, I asked him to tell me something about his childhood. It was so like me, forcing intimacy where there was none, trying to force a connection where there was none. It was my last-ditch effort. I thought if I could prove how deep and thoughtful I was, he would suddenly become interested in me. And of course, my futile trick didn't work. I hope I thanked him for the coffee. I hope I thanked him for the ride. That horrible weekend didn't dampen my tendency to develop crushes, and I continue to do so even though I'm in my 40s, even though I'm happily married. I try to remind myself that it's just a crush, and I ask myself all the rhetorical questions I've asked for the last 2 decades, questions that have always validated my irrational, crushy feelings. Isn't it great to feel excited? Isn't it great to feel so alive? And isn't it great to know that you're still sexual? To which I respond, no. I don't need an emotional reminder that I'm still sexual, and I don't need to be distracted daily by the thought of some guy who is a fiction and a fantasy that I built up in my mind. No, I do not need an irrational feeling to remind me that I'm alive. And I really do hate this feeling, because given my history, I know that I could do something so stupid, so imbecilic, so foolish as to confess my feelings to a guy who's flattered, but not interested. Thank you.